Hi and welcome back to the channel, and behind me, yes, we are doing some work on the Forest Weapon, so let's get going. What are you doing, dog? What? It's okay. Workshop mascot. Before we get started in this video, I'd just like to talk about this little dot here. For some reason, the camera, which is not that old, it's showing that dot. It's not on the screen, it's not in the lens, it's either software related or some sort of drama has happened in there. Might be looking down the barrel of replacing the camera, which I'm not particularly happy about. This one's not that old. Very unfortunate. Anyway, let's get on. Before we get into the video and what we're doing today, I need to have a bit of a rant. And it's very rare that in a video I would usually speak out about the governing body of the sport. However, I have to say something in this case because I think it's not really the right idea. So, seat rails. We use, I have used for many years, a 25mm tube that is 3mm thick. We then weld a thread right through the tube from one side to the other, and we use some nice long bolts to go through there. M8 high tensile bolts is the standard. So and these have been used for, this design has been used for many years. Obviously we also weld in a reinforcing plate. Back in our first video we talked about this. Well, what's happened is the governing body has changed the standard of these tubes, and now it needs to be a 35mm tube, either 35 by 35 square or 35 round, which is kind of like roll cage sort of tube diameter. And again, same deal, got to have a thread welded right through it. Their thickness is a 2.5mm. So our tubes that we put in are actually thicker, and I'm not sure what the idea behind that is. However, there's been a bit of toing and froing this year, because one of the things that they has come out is that usually speaking with cars, once they're logbooked and once they're competing, unless something's damaged or unsafe, it can stay in the car for the lifetime of the car, particularly if you weld it in. However, with the seat tubes, there has been some discussion that the tubes need to be upgraded to meet the current standard, so even existing rally cars need to meet that standard, and it is quite a difficult exercise to cut tubes out and weld new tubes in. And on top of that, every time you weld metal, it becomes brittle, particularly steel, and so therefore you're changing the properties of the material, and it's not ideal to keep cutting and welding over the top of the same things. However, some people this year have been caught, and they have been required to change the tubes out to meet the current standard. Ironically, after some people have spent some money, and it can be quite expensive to do this in a rally car when it's all built and done, and quite time consuming, they have now repealed that decision somewhat, and there is a chance that they may change that ruling for existing rally cars. However, us building this car new, we are not so lucky, and one of the things that we are going to do today is we have to cut these tubes out and put in some new tubes at great time and effort to get these to the standard. And the irony of the standard is, I'll explain more when we look at their drawing. However, there's a couple of things to note with the drawing, which I have raised previously with scrutineers. The drawing specifies the size, but not the material that the tube needs to be made out of. It also specifies that it's got to have an M8 thread in there, which is what we have put in. However, it doesn't specify the thickness, the outside diameter of the actual thread, and it says that you've got to use M8 bolts to retain the seats. However, it does not say what length M8 bolts you've got to use. So the drawing does allow for a bolt-in cross member rather than a welded-in one, and effectively, you could turn up with a plastic tube which meets the drawing characteristics with a 1mm M8 thread right through it, and you could use M8 bolts that are only 5mm long or have only 1 or 2 threads of protrusion inside the thread, and that would meet the standard of the drawing. Yeah, crazy, I know. And that's purely because the drawing doesn't specify some of the details required to put these tubes in properly. So anyway, we're going to cut these out, and we are going to have to put some new tubes in, and then repaint the floor and everything once we've got it all sorted out. So anyway, it's a job that we have been dreading for a while. Well, let's just get on and do it, and at least it'll be done, and this video will also serve as proof that we have done it, and then nobody is going to argue with us that the seat mountings are incorrect when we go to logbook the car or to race it. And let's hope that they don't change the standard again and then say, hey, these need to be cut out and welded in again. So that is both of those tubes welded in. So this was only a couple of minutes of video for you guys. However, it has taken all day for us to get those tubes welded in. It really is quite an unpleasant job. Now, bear in mind that obviously we're still building the car, so there's no real interior in it yet, and we still have to clean it all up and paint it to get it completely finished. However, at least technically speaking, it's all done. Now just imagine if you had to cut this out of a car that is already a full rally car. I mean, strip out the interior, all the seats and harnesses, and God knows what else might be in there in the way sort of thing, then cut the floor out and then weld the tubes and everything in and put it all back together. It's no wonder that some people have been charged some considerable sums of money to upgrade, or rather change, their seat mounting rails. It's not a pleasant experience, so let's hope that in future they do change the regulations and we don't need to go through this, because I'd hate to think now, after having cut these tubes out, that next year they make the standard larger tubes and then make everybody cut them out and weld new ones in again. That's really just crazy talk. All right, let's keep going with other things. All right, Damien, the moment of truth. Let us see whether this nut will fit, this little titanium nut. Why have we got a titanium nut, Damien?
Because we cannot supply any of those nuts in Australia.
Yes. So basically what happened was that we ordered a brand new power steering pump that we saw many episodes ago for this. Oh, and it fits. Yes. Excellent. And when we bought this new power steering pump, it didn't come with a nut for the shaft on there, and we've put aluminium pulleys on there, which is what we wanted to use. We didn't have a factory nut to use, and these are a M14 by 1.5. Now that's considered a fine thread, and you wouldn't think there would be a drama in being able to get a nut for it. However, we went through numerous wreckers trying to find a nut, and nobody had one, because they pull them off the pulleys or whatever, and then they take the pulleys off the pumps, and they just didn't have one, and nobody in Australia had one. So in the end, we had to order one out of China at great expense, and for the one nut, we ended up getting a titanium nut, anodized. So that has to be the most sought after nut in all of Australia, I reckon, that one there, just to hold the power steering pulley on. So we're going to stick that on with some Loctite and tension that up, and that is never coming off again after all this. So look at that, we managed to find a very good, nice second-hand stainless steel dump pipe, which is perfect. So now we've got another piece of the puzzle. It's possible that we're going to have to lock this off where this silencer is here. That'll be the exhaust shop's problem later on, but for the moment we can fit this in the car, so let's chuck it in. The dump pipe on a Subaru is a little bit of a tricky beast. It does help to have two people to put it in, one person underneath sort of holding it in place and another person up above just getting the bolts tightened up and the nuts on it. Anyway, all done and closely followed with the intercooler, and while we were at it, finished off the last of the engine electrical wiring and got the inlet air temp sensor wired up. Finally, we found some time to turn our attention to some of the cool stuff in terms of development. So at the moment, we're fitting up a set of WRX gauges into the crash pad just to make sure that it actually fits in the dash, because this was an Impreza after all, and we have to make sure we've got the right year gauges. We're not going to use them, as we said very early in the piece, we're going to use a digital dash. And that means that we need to make up a completely different mounting for it. We did discuss completely gutting the WRX gauge cluster and then reusing that with some carbon fibre or aluminium and making up a panel to mount the digital dash. However, we're going to go in a different direction and we think will look a lot better and be a lot neater, and we'll announce that in a future video. Continuing on with the development stuff, and we've got a race seat temporarily sitting on a couple of blocks of wood in there because it's time to start looking at the driving position and the controls. In a production car, we don't often have a lot of choice about where we can mount things, buttons, switches, indicator and wiper stalks, etc, etc. However, because this is getting a custom wiring loom, we have a lot more flexibility and we're going to take advantage of that. We're starting with a button panel that's going to be mounted on the transmission tunnel just behind the handbrake. Now, it might seem a bit strange here with a cardboard box and a few bits and pieces, however, this is what it looks like when you take all of those photos and measurements and mock-ups and put them into CAD software and design a mount. Hopefully in a not too distant episode we'll be able to show you all this painstaking work in the flesh. Okay, I think we're going to end this video here on a high note. We've got a fair bit of progress done on the car, which is great. Hope you've enjoyed our update on the Forest Weapon build. We're looking forward to getting it finished and getting it running. Of course, there's going to be a few more episodes in the pipeline. Would also like to say a very quick thank you, because we have been getting a lot of feedback both online and offline as well on the channel, and asking how progress on the car's going and videos in general. So thank you very much for everybody who's been in contact and giving us feedback. It does help us to motivate us to get more videos out. Please give us a thumbs up. That helps out the YouTube channel as well, and puts it out for more people to find us, and subscribe. Hope you've enjoyed this update on the Forest Weapon, and we'll catch you again soon. Cheers.